and welcome everyone. Welcome to, there's still plenty of seats, so wander around, you'll see where a place is available. Welcome to my session about Java 9, 10, and 11. Just to set the stage correctly, all the slides, I'll be very happy to share them. The talk is recorded, and the goal of this talk is to make you comfortable with what's happening with Java at the moment. It's going to mention some of the new features in all the JDKs. By no means, I'm not showing you a comprehensive walkthrough through all the new features in those 3 releases, because then this talk would have to be at least 4 hours, times 3, because 3 JDKs. It's going to mention some, but most importantly, it's going to discuss the support and licensing and what's available and what do you have to pay, do you not have to pay, which version of Java should you now default to, because I expect you've all invested a lot of your professional careers in Java, and it's worth to say that at least I think that our investment as of now is reasonably safe, and I'm not worried, but let's get there as the presentation will guide. My name is Andrzej Grzesik. I'm a Java champion, one of the organizers. You've seen me at the opening. If you need to email, if you need to tweet, I'll be happy to reply. I live in London, working in a simulation company, doing agent-based modeling, having a lot of fun with Scala and Java and Akka and Spark. If you want to talk about it, happily after the talk. An important remark, I'm not a lawyer. I am not an Oracle employee. If we have Oracle employees in the room, nope, nobody waves their hands. They might be more... better suited to answer some Oracle-specific questions, should you have any. I'm telling you how I understand the rules and how it's commonly understood between the people that talk on the internet. Too long didn't read, because this is the second session after lunch. If you're slightly asleep still or already, Java remains free. It remains open source. There is nothing to be afraid of. It's just a change. Quick show of hands. Who here is on Java 6 or 7 or earlier? So older. 5, 6, 7, yeah. 8. Majority of us, yes, myself included. Java 9. Few brave souls. Java 10. More hands. Wow, Java 11. Somebody using Java 12. Okay, there is an early access available, so if you want to play, it is, but running that in production would be considered brave. We'll start with Java 9. Java 9 has brought us a lot of changes, and the important thing about Java 9 is the big release thing was happening on the last Java one. Well, the last Java one, that has a double meaning now. But Java 9 brought us, first of all, they changed the version string. So now it's 904 plus 11. Major, minor, security patch plus build. Quite reasonable. It's also included in the sources, so you can actually parse the version string and have those things exposed and parsed by code within the JDK itself. The biggest poster feature of Java 9 was obviously the module system. The goal of the module system, who here is using modules? Or who here is trying to use modules? I am as well. It's a huge thing. To me, it's a good thing. What it gives us is compiler and runtime will operate under same circumstances. So the modules that you expose to the compiler, that's going to be verified then in runtime, it should work nicely. That's the theory. So far, there is the product I'm working on. We're trying to migrate our sources to be module compatible. It's going to be some work, and it's not going to happen overnight. But obviously, the sooner we start, the sooner we'll be done. It obviously requires some work with the library maintainers. Actually, quite a lot of work, but we're getting there. As a community, it's not an overnight thing. Another very interesting thing and a very positive change was reactive streams. So Java 9, JDK 9, included the API for reactive streams. Reactive streams is a specification and a TCK, so a technical compatibility kit for writing your reactive streams implementations. There are some already available. from Akka, from Spring, there is at least a couple implementations. The important thing is, first, if you need to write one, try to avoid it, because it's actually quite difficult to get something that's specification compliant. But still, if you actually need to write one, have a look at the TCK, so the Technical Compatibility Kit. Test your implementation against the spec. If it passes, then it's fine. If not, well, you'll have some more work, and that's probably why I suggest trying to avoid writing your own in the first place. Java 9 also did something that Java used not to do at all. They actually removed things. It's 6 methods. 6 methods doesn't seem like a lot, but still, Java has gotten to a very comfortable state in which, yeah, things were deprecated but never removed. They started marking things as deprecated and for removal true, and that started to mean that things will actually go away. And in Java 9, they finally came back to that promise and they removed things. A few, not a huge change, but this means that things will change and things will get improved. Language changed a bit, a very, very tiny little bit. Underscore became a keyword, so you cannot use it as an identifier. If you're writing with any of the alternative languages, you probably have seen underscore used for some things within lambdas. That's probably what they want to do with it. They are making the ground to introduce that later. But first, to avoid breaking a lot of code out there, making it a reserved keyword seemed like a safe decision. They also changed the layout. So JDK doesn't contain second JRE directory anymore. You can see JMods, barely because of the light probably, but modules now are a thing. And bin changed quite a lot. Bin changed that much. So some things went away. Noteworthy, JHAT, so the built-in memory analyzer is gone. What should you use? Well, one of the other available implementations. Eclipse memory analyzer is one of the free versions, or profilers will generally allow you to analyze heap dumps. JVisualVM is also gone. So the question becomes, well, where is VisualVM? You all know JVisualVM. Somebody has never heard of VisualVM? Then if there is one thing that, well, two things that you take out of this, Java remains free, try VisualVM as well. If you write Java, that will help you. VisualVM is now on GitHub. Some people call it dev by open sourcing, but that's political, requires beverages that improve communication. Let's discuss it outside of this room, what actually happened, because I'm not Oracle, I don't know. The good thing is it can be released independently of the JDK. The beauty is also, because it's on GitHub, you can commit, you can offer changes, you can make pull requests. That's all out there in the open. Some flags have changed, mainly garbage collector specific. We are not going to discuss all of them because that's not the place and time. The important thing is G1 GC is now the default collector. G1 is a thing that came to us with JDK 8, I think. It had to be at first enabled with special flags, and then now it's default. It's default, which is good because, well, its goal is to minimize pauses that your application encounters. It has one nasty feature in JDK 9, or at least in 8 for sure. Full GCs are single-threaded, which means if you're avoiding full GCs, you're happy, but once you go into a full GC, your application takes only one core. If you run with large heaps, that might be a problem. So, but also G1 GC has this very nice option of using string deduplication. So now, starting from JDK 9, you'll be able to have it by default. The trick question is, when are you planning to migrate to JDK 9? Anybody trying to migrate to JDK 9 within the next 6 months? Yes, a few hands. I said it was a trick question. My recommendation, my personal recommendation, is don't try to migrate to JDK 9. The question obvious from you right now is why? The answer is JDK 9 has had its last patches and is not being developed anymore. After JDK 9 got released, it has been worked on for the next 6 months, and then all the power went into Java 10. So half a year after Java 9, we got Java 10. If you know the concept from software, well, continuous delivery, you probably have heard of it. More releases more often, usually considered a good thing. What happened in Java 10? Well, we have some tools that are gone. Noteworthy, JAOTC, Java Ahead of Time Compiler. If that gets your heart racing, try it at home. Java H is gone. So if you're using Java H to generate header files because you're integrating with C, that's gone now. The obvious question is, how do I? The answer is you can do it with Java C now. Why? Because having two compilers, because, well, Java H effectively is a compiler. It has to traverse your sources and generate headers. Java C already does it, so let's just add the logic in there. And that's what happened. Also, parallel full GC for G1. So what JDK 9 didn't have, now is there. That's with version 10. Versioning changed a bit. Again, so they've introduced a new version string in Java 9, and now they've introduced a new version string in Java 10. And that tells me I should show you a demo. So let's do a clone. Mirror, mirror. So also new APIs in Java 9. First, presentation mode. It's so nice of IntelliJ to have it. And with this size of the screen, I don't have to be afraid of anybody seeing the code. So, one new method added to reader and writer, you have transfer to, which means you used to have to hack around this to be able to transfer a source to an output. You don't have to anymore. It's built into the JDK. MXBean in Java 9 has learned to get the PID, which means you can get the process identifier, and of course, and this is a long, which means if you're running in a decent operating system, you can get the process ID, which is useful for so many places. A tiny detail. Versions as of Java 9. You can parse the property called Java version and runtime version parse, and you get major, minor, security, and patch. That's exposed in the API. I always say that it's very good if your software can identify and can introduce itself with the version it runs with. Java luckily follows this pattern. So if the software you are working on cannot do it, I would recommend it. This practice is so useful in so many times. So moving on to things that happened in Java 10. I mentioned a brief change to Java versioning. Instead of doing major, minor, we now say feature update, we do an interim, and we do an update. So the version string will look like 10.0.1 instead of what it used to look before. Okay. And another change, unmodifiable, is the new immutable. Specifically, if you've worked with the Streams API, you've probably tried to wrap the collected collection into an unmodifiable something. It required either your own collector or a bit of hackery, which is always slightly inefficient, but luckily Java now has something built in. And this is possible because, well, people obviously started to work with streams. Everybody got excited, but then everybody started to complain, hey, this is missing. We are doing it so often, and we're doing it every single time. Everybody has to do this new collections.immutable or whatever you were doing. So, because the feature release is only 6 months away, the JDK team has actually a chance to react and fix what's missing in the language by adding the necessary methods. And this is now with us. This is Java 10. This is, what, March? April this year. Also, the poster feature of Java 10, local variable type inference. Finally. So this becomes legal. That's obviously a joke. You shouldn't use... the fact that I can write it doesn't mean that you should call your vars var, because that's a very bad name. But var remains a legal identifier. The reason is very simple. If you remember Java 1.4 and migrating to Java 5, if your code base contained the word enum, it stopped being legal, so you had to remove it or rename it, which became a bit of a nuisance. With var, that's not possible. Well, the JDK team wanted to avoid this. They succeeded. You can call your variable var still. You shouldn't call your types var. That will be illegal. And what it does is, as you expect, well, var will infer the type that it should be. Quite awesome. Yes. Finally. Yes. Took them a bit of time. Yes, as well. But finally, it's there. Also, heap allocation on alternative memory devices. If anybody is playing with Optane, non-volatile memory, you will be able to put your Java heap on such devices with this flag. It doesn't work with the normal hard drive, but if you have some fancy hardware at your computers, Java 10 allows working with it. And that brings us already to Java 11. So you see the amount of features that I thought noteworthy between versions is reasonably small. If you remember the old releases, Java 6 was Mustang, was such a massive release. Java 7 not so much, Java 8 a big one, Java 9 modules, that was big, but then 10 is reasonably small. But now featured releases, so releases that introduce new features, happen every 6 months. And Java 11 is the first release since Java 8 that is marked with long-term support. And we'll get to what it means in a second. First, a comparison between Java 8, which most of you is on, and Java 11. A lot of things are gone. You can see that everything web service related, everything XML related almost, is gone. Gone is Visual VM, as we mentioned. Gone is also Web Start, yes. Gone is also Mission Control. So the tool that was migrated to Oracle JDK out of JRocket. So they migrated it, and now it's not in the JDK. So Flight Recorder, Mission Control. The obvious question is, where is Flight Recorder? It's been open sourced. If you remember the news, there was a bit of discussion about politics of that. Good thing to discuss after the session. The thing is, the sources are now in the open. If you want to have a look, you're welcome. It's not shipped as part of the JDK, which is bad, because if you come across a JDK, you will need to download that. But that also means that it can develop independently of the JDK. And Flight Recorder is something very, very useful. We'll have a very short demo of that in a second. But that's in the open. That's not part of the JDK. Where is JavaFX? Anybody using JavaFX? Yeah, a few hands. It's not JDK 11 anymore. Don't panic. It's all right. JavaFX has been open sourced. There is JavaFX ports with Open JFX or Open JDK JFX, which has all the things that you need to run all JavaFX applications, or I would say all the things that you need. Possibly because I don't work with JavaFX, so I don't know it that well. But the demo application that you want is there. Maven modules are where you expect them to be. They also have proper module descriptors, so all looks very nice. Java EE and Corba modules have been removed. So JAXB and all the mess that it has caused is now gone from the JDK. Corba, everything Corba related is gone from the JDK. What that means, if your code requires this, you have to explicitly import. What it also means, JDK doesn't have to worry about the EE or web world changing. JDK is the platform. Libraries dependencies are independent. To me, it's a great move. Your opinions might vary, but I'll be very happy to discuss it if you have any questions or anything. One interesting thing that they've added for people who do strange things is a no-op garbage collector. So a garbage collector that essentially doesn't really collect garbage. Or if you're trying to be very precise, it collects all the garbage but never gets rid of them. Imagine you have an application, you want to see what is the impact of changing a garbage collector implementation running with your particular application under a specific test scenario. Before this, the only thing that you could do is give it a huge heap and hope that it doesn't run, but it will still run every now and then. With Epsilon, you can ask the GC to just allocate memory as the application asks for it and don't collect. So obviously, you will die with an out of memory sooner than later, unless your application is very interesting. But that means that you can see how much memory your application goes through as it works. And if you want to compare G1 versus some other implementation, maybe somebody's playing with Shenandoah, you have a baseline that actually includes no garbage collector code whatsoever. To me, that's pretty awesome. If you want to run it, one of those two flags will enable this. If you don't play with garbage collector on a daily basis or at all, it's a useful feature for when you will. And that brings us to a natural point of discussing the release cadence. So Java 11, 25th of September this year, Java 9, September last year, Java 10's in between of that. This is what the lifecycle and the release cadence of Java looks right now. You can see version number 7 at the bottom. You can see version number 8 at the bottom. And you can see those small gray steps or dark gray steps called 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and so on. So what this picture shows us is, first of all, Java has something called feature releases. So new versions of the language which bring changes to the language. So vars and inference and API changes and changes like that, they will happen every 6 months. Every 6 months, you will get a new feature release. And a feature release like 10, like 11, will then see 2 patches. One a month after it has been released, and the second one a few months after. And that's all. Then you will get a new release. If you're in an enterprise environment, if you as an enterprise require some stability, you are interested obviously in running a JDK for more than 6 months before you do testing and migration and moving forward. You probably are interested in one of the LTS releases. What is an LTS release? An LTS release is a release that doesn't get any new features because, well, that's been pushed out. That's now set in stone, so to speak. But all the security, all the runtime fixes that you will require, that those changes will be implemented or backported for an extended period of time. So it is possible with Oracle commercial support, or if you need even more time, it will be possible to get those changes with Oracle extended commercial support. And also, this is based on an InfoQ article, so I don't follow Oracle websites daily. It might change, but that means if you need supported versions, so fixes to JDK 11 for an extended period of time, you will have to look at support. Otherwise, feel free to upgrade. If you're a SaaS startup, well, you control the environment, you're reasonably happy. If you're giving people Java with your software, it will be some funny conversations, obviously. Also, I mentioned that Java 9 is the version that you should not upgrade to. This is because support and development has ceased for that version. Java 8 will end its support, the normal support, in 2022. Extended commercial support, I think 2025 is the deadline for it. So Java 8 will still be with us for a long period of time. Java 11 is the next safe bet. And with that, the natural question is, which version of the JDK should you choose? Oracle JDK, like we used to, Open JDK, maybe Zulu, maybe something else. If you're running Ubuntu or Debian, so this is, I tried running this with the Wi-Fi, but sometimes it's not as stable as I wanted to. I run a recent Ubuntu machine in Oracle Cloud. I I did Java -- version. I got version 10.2, sorry, 10.0.2, as you can see up there. I thought I installed 11, so I did a check of which version do I have, and then yes, user libjvm shows me Java 1.11, which points to Java 11 Open JDK, which then is Java 10. So some Linux distributions did something strange, and if you're using Linux on a daily basis, you might get hit by it. Specifically, Ubuntu has had an exception. They wanted the stable version because 10 is significantly different to 8. They wanted people to have less surprises than if they went directly from 8 to 11. So they thought that we are going to ship 10 as 11 until 11 ships, and then we're going to switch it. I've been hit by it. My friends have been hit by it. Even on Oracle Cloud, this thing exists. I want to save you some time and save you some surprises. This will change. Of course, you can download JDK 11 directly from openjdk.net and use it, and that's fine. Or if you're using it within the license, you can download the deb file even from Oracle, and that's fine. An interesting feature of JDK 12, well, I'll go here. So I can do bash. So you probably already know what's happening. One command that printed a string. Well, what's exciting about that? Well, have a look at the file. This actually includes a shebang like any decent script would. So I can say I run a JavaScript, and please don't confuse that with JavaScript. And now have some water. So you can use Java as the execution engine for scripts, and you can run it from within the file. Is that a huge change? To me, yes. Obviously, you will have to wait for the JVM startup. So if it's a 5 millisecond application that you expect to run, Java might not be your first choice. But if this is something that actually should be run easily from the command line, you can. And this is how you do it. You have to pass the -- source, and then you can run it like any decent application, which to me is quite amazing. What do you want? No, go away, go away. Sorry for that. But that's not all. I can also do... Let's have a look at what examples we have. We have this single page app. Let's try to see what that is. And I run this and, it ran. Anything surprising? Yes, no Java C, no Java minus class path, no fiddling with things. If you've been trying to show, at first, if you've been trying to explain Java to somebody who hasn't programmed, you go through the public static void main. What is a class? Okay, how do I run it? Well, you press this button in my favorite IDE. For me, that happens to be IntelliJ. But what is this class file? What's happening? Now, single file applications can be run directly with Java command. This is useful. This is syntactic sugar or that level of a change, but so very much welcome. If your application can do things in a single app, or if Java is your chosen scripting language, or for some reason you want to use Java, you now can. Pretty awesome. Also, there is no JavaFX in Java 11, right? Right. So what do you do if you want JavaFX? Well, you go to Maven, you tell Maven or Gradle or whatever else you're using to download 2 modules, and you add those dependencies, and then it still doesn't work. But you know that Java now has modules, so we need to be proper citizens of the JavaScape. So we go to no JavaFX, and you will see my amazing layout skills. Oh no, it's a demo, so. Of course. Be gone, be gone. Like seriously, yes, this should be commented out as well. And Java module JDK 11 should avoid certain things. Yes, you should avoid numbers in your modules. And let's finally press run. Yeah, it's a tiny step for Java, but a huge step for Mainkind or something like that. Yeah, but you can run JavaFX with Java 11, with Maven. It's not built into the platform, which means, again, if you want new controls, if you want to see frequent updates to JavaFX, it's possible. Because it's not tied to the JDK release cycle, because it's developed outside, I would say it's a good change. Me looking at the software delivery and my experiences with that, being able to independently deliver is so much better than being tied into the schedule of a JDK. So imagine JavaFX didn't make it for Java 11. You would have to wait for the next release. Even with a 6 months cadence, it still means artificial wait. So that's possible, and I promise to show you one more thing, which is events, and because flight recorder, because this is actually something that's quite cool. So let me quickly enable necessary modules. And why is that interesting? Well, obviously, monitoring. How do you do monitoring in Java? Every computing related problem becomes very different when you add in Java. Events in Java are an interesting thing by itself, but it turns out that JDK, the platform, the runtime, has an event propagation, event management framework already built in. So the logical question is, how do I use it? Well, you can use the APIs to generate your own custom events, and with Flight Recorder and Mission Control, you can actually use them. And then if you generate a recording, you get a file that you can open with Flight Recorder. So if I open JDK Mission Control, and you've seen the early access because this is a version that I downloaded from the open source repository. Believe me or believe me not, this is early access build 06. I have some files there. Awesome. Let's click open and let's go to talks and here. And I'm interested in this one. And you get all the interesting Java and JVM specific runtime recordings, which, yeah, the maximum amount of used memory was 15.8. This is blah, blah, blah. I don't care. What I wanted to show you, the interesting thing is the event browser. So event browser has a lot of different categories of events. Some of them are file force, file read, file write, Java error, Java exception, socket read, socket write. A lot of things you can get out of this tool and using this tool. Compilation failure, but then here at the very bottom is my own event. So you can create your own events and they will be stored the same way as you get JDK specific events. If you're analyzing applications in production, this is an awesome feature. Why? Because you can enable recording of those events while the JVM is running. You don't have to restart the application. You don't have to restart from scratch. You can go to an application that starts to misbehave, record events for, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, take this recording file out of that machine and analyze it at your own leisure in a separate machine, maybe in a separate data center. To me, that's pretty awesome. To me, that's very useful. The licensing for Mission Control and Flight Recorder and using that in production is something I don't remember at the moment, but if you want to have questions about it, we can do outside. But the most important thing that we need to discuss about licensing is Oracle JDK 11 license. So the JDK that you download from Oracle website up until 10, inclusive of 10, was run it in production if you want, that's fine. With 11, if you want to run it in production, you require a license. It's okay to run it for development. It's okay to run testing with it. It's okay to do demo applications with Oracle JDK. And if you want those slides, I'll be very happy to share them. Just come to me, send me an email. You'll get the slides. To use this in production, you need a Java SE subscription, which means if you want to use Oracle JDK, you need a Java SE subscription. Now, first, before we get to, oh my God, Oracle is trying to take tons of money from us. What are the prices? Well, if you're based on per client machines, monthly price per user, $250, that doesn't seem like a crazy amount of money, especially if you've seen some of the enterprise prices for some bigger software packages. If you're service-based and you deploy based on processor counts, it's slightly more expensive, but still, I would say reasonable. Nothing crazy, nothing unheard of in the enterprise space. And I would say not crazy expensive. But the question now is, okay, I'm a developer, I work at a company. Oh my God, I've just heard that Java is still free, it's still open source. Now he's showing me support prices, so what's the deal? Well, the answer to that is the default JDK that you should use from 11 onwards is Open JDK. OpenJDK.java.net, they have builds, they push them out. The source base is open and remains open as of, at least to my knowledge. You can build it yourself, of course, if you so choose. Some companies do it. Twitter does it. I think LinkedIn does it. I know Google has their own JDK team, some other companies as well. So it's not unheard of. Some smaller places as well. And then the question becomes, what do you do if you want support? So first of all, what is support? Support means if you have a problem, your JVM is segfaulting regularly in a specific moment. Well, you can submit a bug report to Oracle, wait for the next JDK release, and get it done. You can try to fix it yourself, like with any other open source software, or you can ask one of the supporting organizations to, in exchange for some money, provide you with some help. What options are available? First, let's get through the versions that we have. If you're using Java 8, if you want to keep using Java 8, there is no change for you. Keep using current version. I think the latest one is 191, released just days ago. End of public updates is going to happen very soon, I think February. Versions released so far have been downloadable from Oracle, and they won't disappear, as in they have been published. It's public. If there are new security holes found in Java 8, they might not get updated or fixed in publicly available builds, but Java 8, all the builds released up until now, they are still there. You can use them in production. Nothing changes there. No panic. Java 9, you can use Oracle JDK in production. It's no longer in development. It's not supported. Last publicly available update is now 9.04. If you go to the source repository of OpenJDK and look at Java 9, you'll see that no commits are happening there. The conclusion is obvious, but if you want to go to Java 9, you're free to do so. Java 10, same situation. The version is slightly different, but again, no updates. Java 11 is where the changes happen. Oracle JDK in production requires a license. Open JDK in production, feel free to use it. That's the change. The question is, what's the difference between Oracle JDK and Open JDK? And the difference is very little. Very little because sources are the same, contents are the same. What changes is headers for the distribution that you download. Oracle JDK includes a deb file. Open JDK doesn't build as a deb file. And Oracle JDK has a support for Oracle's monitoring tooling. And that's pretty much it. LTS, so long-term support version, code base will be maintained for over 6 months. You've seen at least 2025 on the slide I've shown you with the graph before. What this means is fixes to security bugs and runtime bugs within Java 11 will be fixed for a long time. The question is, how do you get the builds? Well, you can always build it yourself. You can adopt OpenJDK builds. You can use Zulu. You can use Linux distros and hope their maintainers will provide you with support. You can use Oracle OpenJDK builds, or you can use a SAP machine. I'm not a SAP employee. This is just because it's there. I think Nicholas is somewhere in the conference. He did work with SAP, if I remember correctly. Maybe he knows more. Have you heard of Adopt OpenJDK? I see only a few hands. So Adopt Open JDK is a community initiative. It's a bunch of passionate individuals who thought they want to help Oracle build and develop the JDK. This initiative started years ago. Right now they have a very impressive build farm that provides binary distributions of the JDK for various platforms. They do hotspot, so what historically was Sun's VM. They do also Eclipse OpenJ9, which is the current name for what used to be IBM's JVM. And they do support a very wide range of platforms. I, for example, have no idea what S390 is. But yeah, you have versions available for all of those. There is no paid support available from Adopt Open JDK because it's a community environment. Builds are well tested, so all the builds produced by the Adopt Open JDK will go some level of testing. Some of them will even pass the official TCK. The official TCK is, to be able to call your technology Java, you need to pass the Java Technical Compatibility Kit. Like I mentioned in the case of reactive streams, if you want to have a valid reactive stream implementation, you need to pass the TCK. Otherwise, well, you're expressing hope, but that's not actually covered in facts. And there has been some discussion about how can you get the TCK, especially if you're Google and you're trying to get a mobile implementation of this. A great discussion for later. The important thing is Oracle will probably charge or doesn't freely distribute the TCK. Adopt Open JDK have been able to get the TCK, so they are able to verify some of the builds with the official TCK. So what you get is actually Java. Also, the interesting thing is IBM offers paid support for Open JDK builds, the ones of what used to be their JVM, that have been built by Adopt Open JDK team. So interesting. If you're an IBM user, that's a very clear migration path. Zulu, if you've heard of Azul, the company that does the C4, so the C4 GC, so effectively pauseless. If you have large heaps and you need that, they started with this. They also offer supported Open JDK builds. They also partner with Microsoft. So if you're running on Azure, you want supported JDK builds, Zulu will be able to provide that for you. Commercial support, a recap, Azul, as I mentioned, IBM for what used to be their JVM built by Adopt Open JDK, Oracle, naturally, and there is also Red Hat, but I'm not an expert on Red Hat. If somebody from Red Hat is in the room, maybe they can wave if they want to answer some questions. Otherwise, you probably can reach them online. Recap and space for questions from you. Java remains free and is still open source. Versions up until 11, excluding 11, are not affected in any way. You can use them in production. You can use them as it used to be. Nothing changes. From 11 onwards, Open JDK is the new default. Oracle JDK requires a license if you want to run it in production. For your own development, demo, and testing, you can do it. You can just go to Oracle and download, and that's fine. That's within the license. Feature releases happen every 6 months. So language will evolve every 6 months or in 6 months increments. There will be 2 patch releases to each, and then a new version of Java will be released, which means the next long-term support seems to be 17 if I'm counting correctly. Do you have any questions? Yes, there is a question. Let's wait for the microphone.
Security updates, will they be pushed out on Open JDK like they are now, so that you get a message you should be upgrading?
Will the security updates be pushed out to Open JDK? The obvious answer is I'm very curious to see myself. I think what will happen, the way I understand it, is you will get a message that you should be upgrading because your JDK 11, the publicly available one, is not current anymore, you should upgrade to Java 12 and 13 and so on. If you keep running JDK 11 without a support, the default migration path is keep getting new builds with a version increment, or use an alternatively built JDK 11. So does it help or not really?
I got more confused, I think.
Okay, let's talk. If you're using Java 11, it will get fixes, and those fixes will be released into a build for within the next 6 months. After that, the version that gets that kind of spotlight is JDK 12. After that is JDK 13. Now, Open JDK will produce builds for 11 as they push new code in. I would expect that they see all the code changes and all the code fixes as JDK 11 gets developed and fixed and improved. But that's what I expect. I cannot promise you what Oracle will do, because I'm not Oracle. Let's talk in the corridor if that still doesn't help. Sure? Anybody else? There is a question there in the corner. If your voice is super strong, you can try screaming or wait for the microphone.
Can you say a few words about Java 12, which is coming next year, if you know about it?
Say again?
The Java 12.
So yeah, Java 12 is scheduled for March, April next year, and it's going to feature some language changes. But the approach to, are you curious what's happening, what's going to be in that release?
Yes.
I think that's slightly out of the scope. The attitude that the team has is, because they release every 6 months, every feature that is ready at the cutoff date gets in. So it's quite difficult to say what exactly will be within the 12th release, because it depends on what is available. One interesting thing, Nashorn, so the JavaScript runtime, it's been marked by deprecated, and it's been marked, it's been marked as deprecated for removal, and it will be removed at an unspecified date. But it received this, the commits with that have been merged very recently until JDK 11 was finalized. So it's much too early to speak about what is actually going to be shipped in 12. I would recommend have a look at Open JDK, have a look at the early access builds. But what you will see from the builds downloaded today is not going to be the final image for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Maybe somebody from this side of the room to give some running space to Michał. No? Oh, there is a question. Yay. Is Azul the only option for the poseless garbage collector? I assume you have heard of Shenandoah. Okay, then it's very good that you asked. First, Azul is famous for a garbage collector that runs very well with heaps of 60 gigabytes, 100 gigabytes, and upwards. And it will run in behind and constantly copy. And the name is constantly copying and compacting collector. I think that's why C4. It allows your application not to experience pauses. There is a number of talks by Gil and Nitsan and other people affiliated with Azul about that. I would recommend you see them. Obviously, there was nothing like that available in the JDK. So if you wanted to achieve something like that with Oracle, it was impossible. There is an experimental GC that people are developing that's going to be similar, but that's experimental and only available, I think, on Linux as of now. And that's early access for 12. There is an interesting garbage collector called Shenandoah, developed by Red Hat. Some names affiliated with that. Well, I should mention Alexei Shipylev, naturally. But I think we can discuss in more details outside. And one last question, if anybody is still curious. Okay, no hands. Perfect. So I hope you now feel a bit more confident and a bit more at ease about what's happening in the JDK. If within the future to come, as in today and tomorrow, you have more questions, just find me. I'll be around. If you want to have a session about it at the Talks for GeeCON, I would say sure, I'll be happy to. Thank you very much. Enjoy. If you need anything, drop me an email, a line, or